Um, Nanette Nickerson, attended Cabrillo College and then transferred to Humboldt State University, where she got her civil engineering degree, and she is now working for Caltrans as a district hydraulics engineer. And so she's here to tell us a little bit about her educational and career path. Welcome, Nanette.
Thank you. I apologize for being late.
Not a problem. We have you. So I thought if you want, you could just talk about that, or did you want me to ask you some questions?
Let's see. Yeah, you know what? Let me bring up the calendar invite. I just had the questions that let's see. Okay, so my first question was where I grew up, what high school I went to, if in Santa Cruz County. I did not go to high school in Santa Cruz County. So I grew up in Southern California, and actually at the age of 35, I was training guide dogs for the blind, and I decided I wanted a career change. I was living in Marin County. It's really expensive to live in Marin County. I was probably making at the time about $55,000 a year, and I was living in a condo with 2 other women and 5 dogs, and I couldn't see that living situation changing with what I was making, so I decided to go back to school and get a degree. Initially, what I thought I was going to do was traditional Chinese medicine, but I started at Cabrillo College. I was going to go to 5 branches. I started with some GE at Cabrillo College, and that first semester I had intermediate algebra and a conceptual physics class, and I loved my algebra class and my physics class, and I wanted to do more math and more physics, which wasn't necessary for the traditional Chinese medicine. And so I told myself that if I wanted to pursue math and physics, that I should do that, and that would probably be a good thing for me. So I changed my major to physics, and I stuck with a physics major for a little while, but then I was concerned. I couldn't imagine what I might do as a physicist. I didn't know what type of work I might be doing or where I might need to live to be a physicist and what might be the implications of the work that I would be doing. I thought, there was a potential that I could be doing work that was really interesting and working with people that I really enjoyed being on a team with, and having in the end maybe doing work that ended up being in the big picture not good for people, and I didn't feel comfortable with that. So I changed my major to physics, or to engineering. And initially I thought maybe I would want to be a geotechnical engineer, but I ended up coming around to civil. So I was at Cabrillo College from like 2004 until 2008. I started off just kind of going part-time. Well, actually my first semester I took a lot of units, but then when I started taking the tougher courses, when I started taking the engineering and the physics courses, I was like, holy cow, this is really hard. I can't carry a full load of this. So I kind of cut my units back a little bit. Later on I kicked them back up, but for a while I went along just trying to do 2 hard classes at a time. And then I increased that later on. So my experience at Cabrillo College was great. I think Dave Villanzoni has retired now, but I took one of the tougher calculus professors that terrified everyone and stuck with him through the whole calculus series, and took all the physics there and chemistry and stuff like that. I found the teaching at Cabrillo to be phenomenal, and also the quality of the labs at Cabrillo College is really top notch, from physics to biology to everything. Just the quality of the labs was great. It was definitely better than what I saw when I transferred to Humboldt State. In terms of the quality of the labs. The quality of instruction at Humboldt State was good. I liked it. I had good professors and I learned a lot. But yeah, I definitely take advantage of the quality of instruction that you get at the community college level, because the higher you go up, the more the professors are hired based on their interest in doing research and putting their energy into research, and less so into their teaching and the quality of their teaching. And so you're really benefiting from that right now in ways that you might not see later when you transfer. Okay, so I talked about the field of engineering that I went into. So the reason that I transferred to Humboldt State University, I wanted to do some sort of environmental engineering, and I thought about transferring to San Jose State because it's close. I was living with my sister in Santa Cruz, but when I went to San Jose State and I looked at what their options were for, electives, for like specialty electives within the civil field, the only stuff that they had that was, kind of remotely environmental was kind of just the standard, like air quality, water quality. And I wanted something a little bit more groovy than that. So Humboldt State has, river systems, engineered natural treatment systems, solar thermal, they have all kinds of stuff that I found a lot more interesting. So that was why I decided to kind of leave my free ride living with my sister in Santa Cruz and move up and go to Humboldt State. So that was kind of how I chose Humboldt State. So I was able to get a great job right out of college. Like I literally got an interview before I was done with my capstone project. So before I even graduated, one of my professors helped me to get an interview with a small fish passage engineering firm up here in Humboldt County, and it was totally my dream job. And I worked there for 4 years, and I got to work on basically at every level of project development, from scoping projects to apply for funding for like fisheries restoration grant program monies, like from that level up through being out in the field, doing surveys, creating surfaces, doing fish passage analysis. I got to do a lot of work in the field. We would gauge water surface levels in streams through several seasons, and we'd be looking at, if you've got an off-channel pond here, and you've got a stream coming up and down here, like what are the flows, what's the frequency of flow, and if you want the fish to be able to get from here to here, what do you need to do to make that happen based on the water surface elevations that tend to happen throughout a typical year. So I got to do a lot of those types of analyses. I got to survey, I think one of my favorite fieldwork projects that I did, I got to survey 7 cross sections of the Eel River over a mile-long reach of the Eel River, where I was like hiking, way up the side of the river base, of the river channel, and then down, getting points, and then getting in a kayak, extending the rod way out, getting the bathymetry all the way across the Eel River, climbing out of my kayak on the other side, getting the rest of the sections. And then I was able to put that together in a HEC-RAS model and model the flows in the Eel River, and then of Woodman Creek coming down into the Eel River. That was where we were doing the restoration, was Woodman Creek, which is a tributary into the Eel River. What had happened is that when they put the train tracks through, there's actually a rail line going along the Eel River. A lot of it has since fallen into the Eel River because the banks aren't really all that stable. But what they had done is they had blasted through, instead of letting Woodman Creek follow its natural channel, they blasted through some bedrock so that they could build their train bridge across the bedrock, and then they filled in what used to be Woodman Creek and just built the train tracks right across that. So they turned what used to be a passable stream, they turned it basically into this rock waterfall. And so what we did is we went in and surveyed it and engineered a plug to plug that hole back up that they had cut through the bedrock, and then opened the old channel back up. And that's all been done now. You can see it in Google Earth. It's kind of cool. So since then, I've worked for a friend of mine that I went to school with who started her own engineering firm. And then now I work at Caltrans up in Humboldt County still, and for District 1. I started with Caltrans. Let's see, I graduated in 2012. I started at Caltrans in August of 2018. And in May of this year, in May of 2021, I applied for and was hired for a position as a supervising senior, and I am now the district hydraulics engineer for Caltrans District 1. So that means that I am so we have over 10,000 culverts in this district. It's Del Norte County, Humboldt County, Mendocino County, and Lake County is Caltrans District 1. And so anything drainage related that's legal, that comes through me, or that could get contentious in court. Any drainage off of our facilities. Sometimes people think that drainage that goes under the roadway or leaves the roadway is like our water that we created. So you kind of have to explain that to people, and go through those kinds of discussions. And sometimes there are things that we can or should do, and a lot of times it's just drainage law related. Like you have to accept the water from upstream, and the person downstream of you has to accept the water off of your property, and that's how drainage law works. And then my unit puts together major projects of between 1 and 200 culverts, and then we also do smaller maintenance projects that have like 8 to 12 culverts. And I'm also the person who does fish passage for this district. So I'm learning a lot. It's going to take me years to really be like highly competent at my job, but I have good relationships with people that I work with, and I know who to go to for help. So that is ultimately what will make me successful in the long run in this position is the people and the teamwork.
And as these students in our class are embarking on their engineering path, educational path, do you have any advice that you would offer them?
So my advice is, is to, you want to focus, you definitely want to be competent technically. And if you get your degree in engineering, you have the technical competence to be an engineer, no matter what it took you to get there. It took me 10 years to get my 4-year degree. And part of the reason for that is, now I'm going off track, but part of the reason for that is that I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's follicular lymphoma once I was already at Humboldt State. And I told myself that if I quit school, nobody would blame me, because cancer is super freaking scary and going through chemo sucks. And so I told myself a few times I could quit, nobody would blame me, but I didn't quit. I took one class each semester. It took me through part of 2 semesters to get through chemotherapy, and it kind of, it saps you of all your energy and it kills your brain. And it's like, I couldn't think, I was weak, it was ridiculous. And the semester that I went back to school was my second to my last semester. And I was running so scared, afraid that my brain wasn't going to work, that I actually did really excelled that semester in ways that people usually don't at that point because they're kind of burnt out. So it actually ended up working in my favor. But yeah, I can say that, social skills and emotional intelligence and the ability to work well with other people is really, really important. And that is what is going to help you move up the ladder and move up into management if that's what you want to do. The ability to work with other people and be a good team player and kind of understand that, just kind of having emotional intelligence, understanding that if somebody's a jerk to you, it's probably not about how they feel about you. They're probably having a bad day. And being able to kind of let some of that roll off your back and continue to be your best person and do the best that you can do. People notice that kind of stuff. People notice somebody, like for me, I'm going to be hiring pretty soon, and I'm trying to come up with interview questions where I can bracket the technical skills and the who are you. And I really, really want to find a way to set criteria so that I can hire somebody who has a lot of try. I would much rather hire somebody who has a ton of try than somebody who is super, super smart. Everything's easy for them, and they don't have a good attitude, or they think that certain types of work are beneath them. Like, I would rather have somebody of average intelligence who cares, who's a good team player, and who has a lot of try. That's the kind of person that I'm looking for. And so I'm really kind of mulling over in my head right now, like, how do I set my criteria and ask the kinds of questions to ferret out that kind of information. So that's my next challenge coming up, because there's lots of smart people. But I want the people that are going to be good team players and that are going to be nice for my team, that are going to be good for my team to work with every day. But yeah, having an engineering degree it's been great. It's like we have so much job security. Like, if you have an engineering degree, you can get a job, and you can probably get a job wherever you want to live. So, depending on the type of engineering you choose, pretty much anywhere where people are living, engineering is necessary. Some sort of engineering is necessary. And so it just builds in a lot of flexibility in terms of where you can be, which is something that I didn't see when I was a physics major. I was like, what might I be doing? Like, where might I be living? And that was just really great for me. So, yeah, it definitely, it felt like it would never end. And that's because it took me 10 years, and it took a while to get the degree. And then it took me a while to get my PE after that. But now I have, eventually you get it all under your belt, and you get better and better at learning, and you get better at doing harder and harder things. And ultimately, what your engineering degree does for you is it teaches you to crank out a lot of coherent work that is useful and easy for other people to understand and follow. And it also teaches you how to learn. And so you don't have to necessarily know how to, you don't need to know how to do the job that you're hired to do on the day that you're hired to do it. They understand that because you have this engineering degree, you've learned how to learn. And as long as they provide you with the information that you need to learn what they need you to do, you're going to be able to do it. You're going to be able to figure out how to solve problems. And I was on, the first week in my first job, I was given some information. I was given a problem to solve. It was a kind of problem that I had never solved before, and it was super fun. And your first job won't always be the first job you get might not be the best match for you, and that's okay. There's going to be something out there that will be a good match for you. So just keep looking. there were times when I thought maybe I didn't choose the right path when I was on tours, when I was in school and stuff like that. And I got some good pep talks, like not everywhere is going to be a good match for you. So just because you went on a job shadow at a particular firm, and found it offensive doesn't mean that this is the wrong career path for you. It just means that you might not want to work at that company. So there's definitely something out there for you.
What was your undergraduate degree in? Was it at civil and environmental then engineering?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
it's at Humboldt State, it's environmental resources engineering. It's the RE program. And it's
Okay.
a BS. It's a bachelor's of science. So
Yeah. And were you able to do any internships too while you were
I did internships at Cabrillo College. I was riding the bus a lot, and I also talked to people. So I ended up, through talking to people on the bus, I got an introduction to somebody that worked for the county of Watsonville. So I got an internship through the city of Watsonville. So my last summer I had a city of Watsonville internship. I also taught in the after school science program for the city of Watsonville when I was at Cabrillo College. And I also volunteered to do some engineering projects with junior high school students through Cabrillo College. And then once I transferred, I applied for a student engineering position with the California Department of Water Resources, Eureka Flood Center. And I had that job for like 3.5 years while I was at that Humboldt State. And so that made a big difference too. Like, doing internships and volunteering to teach kids and stuff, it just is a way of showing that you're engaged and you're interested. So I think that helped me a lot with getting hired and getting a state job. I'd already had a state internship. State jobs and state internships, it's kind of a big messy mess of paperwork, and you have to like figure it all out and dot all the I's and cross all the T's. And sometimes I feel like you need an engineering degree just to apply for a state job, but it's worth the process. It's if you're interested in going that route, it's worth figuring out, like, oh, good grief, okay, so I have to take an exam just to be able to qualify to apply for this job, and I have to fill out all these forms, but you just have to keep drilling down and figuring it out, and
yeah.
it's worth the effort.
I wonder if any of the students in the class have any questions for you. If you do, feel free to mute. See any unmutes. I have a general question kind of related to a lot that we hear about in the news, but how do the fires impact your job? You mentioned drainage, and I could imagine there's some caustic materials coming through.
I wish I had some photos at my fingertips, but I can describe it. So the fires, we have a really active geology up here anyways. Like, our major damage program is always busy. Like, we have landslides like crazy. And so with the fires, it kills off a lot of the veg. And if you have a fire and then you have rain, then you will have landslides. And the other thing is, for Caltrans, is hazard trees will end up having to go through and take out a bunch of trees that are just like waiting to fall over the road and kill somebody. So you end up with a lot of that. And then you also end up with a lot of just like a lot more downed wood in the watershed. And that's the image that I wish I had to show you right now, because that can cause some serious plugging of culverts, like with woody material. And then once you block a culvert, then the water can't go into the road, and now it has to go over the top of the road. So if you don't get that fixed in time, then you're going to end up with the whole road prism blowing out from flowing water and all that sediment for for the road prism is going to end up in the creek, and that's all bad. So yeah, fires can kind of lead to all of that kind of stuff, from destabilizing the earth to just creating a lot of woody debris. And then we're doing all the guardrail that's being replaced now. The wooden posts are being replaced with steel posts because we've lost just thousands and thousands and thousands of feet of guardrail when the wood posts burn in the fires. And plastic culverts melt in the fires. So we're not, there's more and more areas where we can't use the HDPE, the high density polyethylene or whatever they are, culverts. We can't use those in fire prone areas, and more areas are fire prone now. So because they just melt, and then you don't have any structural integrity for that culvert at all. So yeah, there's like a lot of inspections that have to go on out in the field just to be able to open the roads back up, just to know that they're going to be safe enough to have people driving around out there. But yeah, fires keep things interesting.
Cool. Does Caltrans have student opportunities? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, they definitely do. And in fact, I just got an email about, all of the same COVID guidelines are going to apply to your students if you have any students. I am not familiar with the student application process for working for Caltrans, but I know that they do. I know that they take student interns, and I also know that they'll take volunteers. Like I went to school with a gal that was having trouble getting a job, and she now works for Caltrans, and she volunteered for Caltrans for some months before there was a position for her to apply to that she got hired for. So so that she still works here, and she's an engineer.
Cool.
So that's another route to get your foot in the door.
One of the students asked how the drought has affected your job.
The drought, well, you know what? It's probably made it seem easier than it should be, because less water means less drainage issues. So it hasn't really had a big impact on my job until I kind of thought about it. It was like, and I've only been in this position since May. So, but it hasn't had a very big impact on my job per se, except that less flow through culverts and less flow in the creeks makes it less likely for the road prism to blow out into the stream, and then that's less problems. So, but yeah, the drought's definitely not good, but it probably does make my job a little bit easier actually as a hydraulics engineer.
Oh, isn't that funny? Are there any other questions for Nanette before we let her go? Okay, well, I want to thank you so much, Nanette, for joining us and talking about all the work you're doing. It was really fun to hear about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry for my late arrival.
That's okay.
I appreciate your flexibility.
No problem. It was great to have you. And please keep in touch.
Okay, will do. Good meeting you.
Good meeting you too.
Bye-bye.
Sure.